So hello again and welcome back to Cybersecurity in the Ancient World. This is episode number 8. When thinking of communication security systems, we often think of computer systems, banks, and secret services like the FBI and CIA. Yet, did you know that the ancient Greeks and Romans knew everything about hiding secrets and securing confidential information too? In this series of 10 videos, we will discuss 10 examples of secret communication in the Greco-Roman world from the 8th century BCE to the 4th century CE. We will see the Spartans and Caesar going to war. But also cipher codes, invisible ink, love letters, and ultimately someone who was carrying his own death sentence without knowing. So when and why did the Greeks and Romans use secret communication? And what secrets did they hide from their enemies? We will see this and much more in this series. So welcome to Cybersecurity in the Ancient World. Episode number 8. Caesar's secret messages, known as the Caesar Cipher. In this 8th episode, we take a look at the so-called Caesar Cipher. The cipher is known from passages in the works of Suetonius, Aulus Gellius, and Cassius Dio. Suetonius was a Roman historian who lived from about 69 to 122 CE. He wrote during the early imperial era of the Roman Empire. Works by Suetonius concerned daily life of Rome, politics, oratory, and lives of famous writers, including poets, historians, and grammarians. A few of these books have partially survived, but many have been lost. Suetonius' most important surviving work is a set of 12 biographies of successive Roman rulers, from Julius Caesar to the Emperor Domitian, known as the Lives of the 12 Caesars. In Suetonius' work on Julius Caesar and Augustus, we find Suetonius' descriptions of the Caesar cipher. And then Aulus Gellius. Gellius was a Roman author and grammarian who was probably born and certainly brought up in Rome. He lived from about 126 to 180 CE. Gellius was educated in Athens, after which he returned to Rome. He is famous for the work Attic Nights, a commonplace book or a compilation of notes on grammar, philosophy, history, antiquarianism, and many other subjects, hereby preserving fragments of works of many authors who might otherwise be unknown to us today. Gellius' work Attic Nights takes its name from having been begun during the long nights of a winter which Gellius spent in Attica, the region around Athens. Gellius afterwards returned to Rome, where he continued the work. The Attic Nights is compiled out of an adversaria, or a commonplace book, in which Gellius had jotted down everything of unusual interest that he heard in conversation or read in books. The work comprises notes on grammar, geometry, philosophy, history, and many other subjects. The work, deliberately devoid of sequence and arrangements, is divided into 20 books. All books have survived except number 8, of which only the index survives. In book 17 of the Attic Nights, we find Gallius' discussion of the Caesar cipher. And finally we have Cassius Dio. Dio was a Roman historian and senator of maternal Greek origin who lived from about 155 to 235 CE. Dio was known for publishing the work Roman History. The work was a history of ancient Rome in 80 volumes, beginning with the arrival of the mythical hero Aeneas in Italy after Aeneas had fled from Troy. The volumes documented the subsequent founding in Rome in 753 BCE, the formation of the Republic in 509 BCE, and the creation of the empire in 27 BCE. And the work ends in 229 CE. It took Dio 22 years to write the work, completely in ancient Greek, covering about 1,000 years of Roman history. Many of the 80 books have survived intact or as fragments, providing modern scholars a very detailed perspective on Roman history, at least from Dio's side. In Book 40, we find Dio's description of the Caesar cipher. Let us now have a look at the Caesar cipher. Remember, we saw in previous episodes there were steganographic and cryptographic messages. In steganography, messages are hidden. In cryptography, messages are encrypted. The Caesar cipher is the only known Roman cryptographic system. It is named after Julius Caesar by modern cryptographers, since Caesar is supposed to have invented and used the technique for the first time. Caesar seems to have used the cipher to communicate with his generals over long distances, a bit similar to the theoretical Spartan use of the scutula that we have seen in episode number 4. The Caesar cipher is often regarded as a simple substitution technique for encryption, whereby each letter of a normal text is replaced by a letter that can be found a fixed number of positions down the alphabet. For example, it seems that Caesar has always used a right shift of 3 letters. How did it work? We have a few descriptions. According to Suetonius, it worked in the following way. It was Caesar's usual practice, whenever he was sending a secret message to anyone, to substitute in every case for the proper letter of the alphabet the 4th letter beyond, so that the writing might be unintelligible to most persons. And Suetonius adds that there were letters to Caesar's intimates on private affairs. When Caesar had anything confidential to say, he wrote it in cipher. That is, by so changing the order of letters of the alphabet that not a word could be made out. And finally, Gallius mentions the names of 2 of Caesar's correspondents with whom Caesar communicated in cipher, the generals Appius and Balbus. According to Gallius, there were letters of Gaius Caesar addressed to Gaius Appius and Cornelius Balbus, who had charge of Caesar's affairs in his absence. In certain parts of the letters, there were found individual characters which are not connected to form syllables, but are apparently written at random, for no word can be formed from those letters. From Suetonius and Dio's descriptions, it becomes clear that Caesar's encryption worked by substituting every alphabetic letter in the normal text for the alphabetic letter that could be found 3 places further down in the alphabet. In other words, Caesar used a right shift of 3, with A becoming D, B becoming E, and so on with the rest of the letters. Decryption obviously worked the other way around. D became A again, E became B, and so on with all the other letters. Although Caesar never directly discusses the use of the cipher in his works, we can find dozens of references to the sending and receiving of important confidential dispatches in Caesar's works. There were 19 references in Caesar's works to the sending of important confidential dispatches from Caesar to his staff, while Caesar's staff sent 40 highly confidential reports back to him about the enemy's strength and whereabouts. In addition to this, Caesar mentions 69 times that he sent word to some of his troops in general, or to specific people, without mentioning that he sent them an actual written message. Then there were another 67 potential references to secret letters, which are situations in which Caesar left some of the forces at a certain location and then moved on to another place with only a small part of the forces joining him. And then finally, we have no less than 140 situations in which Caesar sent troops away from him or urged them to join him again. This brings the total number of potential references and allusions to secret messaging sent to Caesar to 128 messages. And there are another 207 passages in which secret messages could have been sent. Suetonius and Dio, therefore, seem to make a reasonable argument when saying that Caesar wrote in cipher whenever he had anything confidential to say. Although Caesar never directly discussed the use of the cipher, we do have one reference to a secret letter. In one passage from Caesar's Gallic War, we read that Caesar's general Quintus Cicero was besieged by the Gauls in a Roman camp with part of the troops. According to Caesar's own account, in order to let Quintus Cicero know that Caesar was about to send help, he decided to write Cicero a letter written in Greek letters or Greek characters to prevent the Gauls from understanding the letter in case it was intercepted. Cassius Dio presumes that Caesar simply wrote the letter in Greek to make sure that the Gauls could not understand the message. However, a letter simply written in Greek in order to encrypt Caesar's message seems an inadequate interpretation of the situation in this case. Correspondence between elite Romans in this period would typically have been written in Greek as a matter of course anyway. And Caesar knew that some of the Gauls had knowledge of the Greek language and script. Some historians assume that Caesar transliterated the message that was originally written in Latin into Greek characters or Greek letters. In this way, a Greek, meaningless message was created. This is plausible since in fact the use of different languages with different alphabets, like Latin and Greek, would have made the message more secure. However, a different explanation is more plausible. Since Greek was the predominant language used by the elite, another possibility is that Caesar's secret letter to Cicero was already written in Greek and then encrypted with Caesar cipher in the Greek alphabet. And that is what we see here. A ciphertext alphabet in Greek with a shift of 3 letters to the right. This is most likely the system that Caesar used. We can probably decode Caesar's story of the message to Cicero as a veiled account of Caesar's cipher being used in the field. Let us summarize and conclude for today. Last time we saw Roman fire signals used in warfare over long distances. Fire signaling is a method of steganography, since a complete message is hidden in a fire signal instead of encrypted. In other words, the fire signal has a meaning only known to specific people, making it a secret message. Today, we have seen an example of cryptography, the enciphering of messages. We have seen the Caesar cipher. Caesar used a cipher with a right shift of 3 in every confidential message. Although Caesar never discussed the cipher himself, we can find dozens of references in his works in which Caesar ciphers are likely to have been used. After Caesar, his nephew and adopted son Augustus used a Caesar cipher too. Augustus used the cipher with a shift of 1 letter to the right. Caesar's and Augustus' shifts, the shift of 1 or 3 letters to the right, seems too simple to our modern world. Yet the Caesar cipher has had an impact on modern cryptography. The cipher is still mentioned in almost every book on 21st century cryptography, where it is described as being a conceptual milestone in the development of modern cryptography. Moreover, the Caesar cipher is still known as a substitution technique for encryption, whereby each letter of a plain text message, so a normal text, is replaced by a letter that can be found a fixed number of positions down the alphabet. These systems are, of course, more sophisticated variations, but they are still in use in cryptography up to present day. Thank you again for watching. What do you think of this episode? Do you want to know more about the Caesar cipher? Or do you want to share anything else? Then please feel free to contact me for any comments, suggestions, etc. And do you want to know more about communication security in ancient Greece and Rome? Then stay tuned for our next episode on invisible ink in love letters. Thank you again for watching. Have a good day. Bye.